The stakes have just been raised in the Ukraine-Russia war as the US gives the green light for Kyiv to use long-range missiles, a decision that could alter the course of the conflict. Defense Secretary John Healey, addressing the House of Commons on Monday, reaffirmed the UK's unwavering commitment to Ukraine, though he stopped short of confirming whether Britain would allow Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory with its own missile systems. The Prime Minister has been clear that we must double down and give Ukraine the support it needs for as long as it needs, Healey declared, underscoring the UK's ironclad support, but steering clear of specifics on the use of British-supplied weapons. In a notable development, Healey revealed his conversation with US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, emphasizing the urgency of countering the presence of North Korean troops on the front lines in Russia.
There are, and the Honourable Member is right, 10,000 North Korean troops in Russia on the front line. At the weekend, Russia launched its biggest aerial attack since August into Ukraine and against infrastructure there. I spoke to the US Defense Secretary yesterday about this escalation. I'll be speaking to the Ukrainian Defense Minister about it later today, and I want this House to be in no doubt. The Prime Minister has been clear that we must double down and give Ukraine the support that it needs for as long as it needs.
Meanwhile, Shadow Defense Secretary James Cartledge hailed the US decision to approve Ukraine's use of long-range missiles, particularly in the region of Kursk, calling it a critical step in Ukraine's defense. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday also pledged support for Ukraine as the UK's top priority at this week's G20 summit in Brazil.
I'm at the G20 with one message, which is that we must double down on our support for Ukraine. Tomorrow is day 1,000 of the conflict. That's 1,000 days of aggression from Russia and 1,000 days of sacrifice from Ukraine. So that is my clear message here. It's number one on my agenda. Obviously, I'm not going to get into operational details because the only winner, if we were to do that, is Putin, and I'm not prepared to do that. We need to double down. We need to make sure Ukraine has what is necessary for as long as necessary, because we cannot allow Putin to win this war.
Healey, addressing the broader defence strategy, outlined the UK's future plans, including a pledge to raise defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2025, solidifying the country's leadership role within NATO.
Our cast-iron commitment to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP will help set the pace in NATO. I'm pleased by the fact that in 2001 we had only 6 NATO nations that were meeting the NATO pledge level of 2%. This year it is 23 nations. And as far as the UK goes, we commit almost all of our armed forces and our nuclear deterrent to NATO. So we play a leading role. We will have a NATO-first policy at the heart of our defence plans, and we will always look to be first in NATO as part of our leadership role.
The US policy shift on missile usage comes amid increasing pressure on Ukraine from President Zelensky to gain access to long-range weaponry. Moscow, however, has warned that this decision could trigger a new round of tension. Despite these warnings, US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan emphasized that Ukraine's battlefield position would be more effectively bolstered by an increase in troops rather than a mere escalation in weapons systems, a view that some analysts might consider out of step with the immediate challenges Kyiv faces. President Biden's authorization of long-range strikes inside Russian territory represents a significant pivot in US foreign policy, raising critical questions about the role of NATO allies, like the UK and France, whose missile systems had previously been withheld from Ukraine for strikes inside Russia. With these strategic shifts unfolding, the potential for a broader escalation remains high even as Kyiv looks to leverage its new arsenal to gain the upper hand on the battlefield.